And now, an all-new WB event. Guardian, Defender, Legend. For years, a single force has ruled the night, battling Gotham's most notorious villains. Now, the greatest hero of all time is about to face his true destiny. Journey into the future as the WB presents a new era in the Dark Knight's legacy. And now, Batman Beyond.
Welcome, citizens of Gotham, to The Fire Rises, a Batman podcast focusing on all things The Dark Knight and his world. If you'd like to connect with the show, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at tfrbatpod. And if you have thoughts, questions, comments, or even suggestions for future episodes of the show, you can reach us by email. Just shoot those emails to tfrbatpod@gmail.com. My name is Eric Carter, and I am your host, and I am joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Joseph Fornerado. Joe, I know you were saying goodnight to your son. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, he was trying to say hello to you actually as he was coming down here, but yeah. Uh what's going on, Eric? Great way to start this one, right? Yeah, good to be back talking more Batman with you. And yeah, we get the excitement of seeing the hectic schedule we have trying to have the kids put to bed by a certain time so we can record, and it always lines up perfectly, doesn't it?
It does. Well, and this is the mark of just the professionalism that we have as podcasters, Joe. Is the
Absolutely.
scheduling when we have dinner, saying goodnight to kids, things like that. So here
Yeah.
we are. But anyway, so on our last episode, we kind of said a farewell not only to 2023 but to the DCEU. But there's so much going on this year. This is a massive year for Batman. This is the 85th anniversary of Batman this year. It's also I believe that's right. You're looking questioning, Joe.
I was trying to do the math in my head. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. 85th anniversary of Batman as a whole. And then we have the upcoming 35th anniversary of Batman 89 this year, which is wild. And today we have another anniversary to talk about because 25 years ago, in January of 1999, we got a little animated show called Batman Beyond, and that's what we're celebrating today. So we're gonna talk all about the pilot. We're gonna talk about the mark that Batman Beyond has left on the mythos of Batman, and we're gonna just dive into all things Batman Beyond. But before we get there, of course, I do have to give a shout out to our partner sponsor in Organic Priced Books. Now, you guys have heard me talk about Organic Priced Books on the podcast for quite a while now. They've been a great partner for us. I've bought several books from them by now myself. But if you're looking for a book, and these are collected editions, it's not just Marvel and DC, although they do have those. You can get IDW, Dynamite, Boom Studios, all the major brands and the independent brands. So if you're looking for a way to save on those collected editions and also to support this show while you do so, go to the description in this podcast, use our link there and use our promo codes. The first is tfrbatpod, and that saves you $2 off of any order. And the second is tfrbatpod ship it together, and that will save you 5% off any order of 3 or more books. So make sure you guys go over and check out Organic Priced Books. Joe, I told you yesterday, I believe, and I didn't know this was a thing until I was searching Organic Priced Books, since we're talking Batman Beyond, there's a Batman Beyond collection coming out for the 25th anniversary, and it's coming. The pre-orders are live now, so you can go to Organic Price Books and pre-order that if you want to. But it's coming in March, I believe. So it's a celebration of the 25 years. I didn't realize, I don't think, that the comic came out the same year as the show. So they started up the Batman Beyond comic in 99 as well. And now they have what they're calling a compendium. It's like 720 pages, full collection of the original Batman Beyond run. The only downside is I was telling you it's paperback. What do you think
That's
of
the
that, Jeff?
that's the compendium thing. Is That's what I didn't realize. It's not an omnibus, it's a compendium. I don't know if that's how DC is gonna differentiate. It's one of those things where take the good and the bad. I wouldn't have even expected a Batman Beyond collection, to be honest with you, but it's nice that they're doing one. It is just unfortunate that it's not getting the full omnibus treatment that we've been lucky enough to get on so many different DC books. But it is what it is. I know they've been doing this a lot with like deluxe edition. I mean, they keep calling them deluxe editions, but like they're trades. It's just they're larger format trades, I guess, is why they're considered
Yeah.
deluxes still. Yeah, it's a little disappointing for me because I much prefer hardcover, but it is what it is. I guess we'll just be thankful that we're getting something. And I had never read any of these issues. I don't know about you.
I think I've read a handful, but it's been so long. I've never read
Hmm.
the full run. It's kind of like with the Batman Adventures. I did get that omnibus, and that's what's kind of the bummer about the compendium, quote unquote, is because I'd love a Batman Beyond omnibus to stick on the shelf beside my Batman
Exactly.
Adventures omnibus. But
It's such a dorky thing to want the spines to
yeah,
line up next to each other and look good on the shelf, right?
yeah, because I can't put a paperback beside my hardcovers. I
Yeah.
just can't. Yeah. But I can't lie. I'm still tempted just because I've never read that full run, and it would be
Hmm.
awesome to have a collected. I mean, I could read it on DC Universe, but I don't know. It would be cool to have it. So
Hmm.
I'm on the fence about it. But if you're considering it, Organic Price Books does have a discount for you on that book. So go check it out, or any other collected edition you're interested in picking up. So don't forget to go check out Organic Price Books. But Joe, let's get into it. Let's talk about the show that we're here to talk about. Let's dive all into Batman Beyond. All right, Joe. So you and I have talked about Batman Beyond here and there. I think especially when Holy Batcast was doing their coverage,
Hmm.
rewatching the show and covering it episode by episode, which is not what we're going to do. We are going to discuss the pilot. Joe and I both watched the pilot in anticipation of this episode. So we're going to review kind of the pilot, and then we're going to talk about the impact of the show overall. But this show began airing on January 10th, 1999, so 25 years ago and a couple of so odd days. But Joe, I was telling you the other day, this show premiered in prime time. So the first two episodes premiered as kind of a mega episode in prime time in 1999. So apparently Batman and Robin didn't completely kill Batman in the late 90s because it was still worthy of a primetime show. And I didn't remember this until I was doing a little research for this show. And you and I talked about it. I don't think you watched the show as it was starting to come out, did you? And I didn't either. I caught it later. So tell me a little bit about your background and your history with Batman Beyond.
I have very little history with Batman Beyond at all. I wasn't even really aware of the primetime special, which talk about just different times like that like never happens nowadays, with these, you know, primetime cartoon premieres. But back then I was aware of the show kind of in the background, but I mean, was not my thing. Like I was probably that, older kid that was kind of like, what? Like what are they doing? Like that's not Batman to me. Um, Not something I was interested. I didn't know even what the deal was. I don't even think I knew that Bruce Wayne was in the show. I really don't even remember what my even baseline knowledge of the show was back then. And my introduction to the show was eventually being talked into seeing Batman Return of the Joker, or Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, which I think is probably pretty common for the people that didn't see the show when it first aired. Um,
Hmm.
Especially people our age, because it wasn't for us at that time. And if you missed it, I think Batman Beyond Return of the Joker was your gateway into it, or at least your first introduction to it, whether you decided to pursue it further or that was enough.
Yeah, and for me, it's the same situation. I really got introduced to this show through the movie, through Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. And it was even a little while after that. And I think I realized because a big thing for my sister and I when we were growing up was Boy Meets World.
Mhm.
And when I finally realized that Will Friedle, Eric from Boy Meets World, was Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond, I was like, well, that is so cool because I have such a history of watching him on television. I got to catch up with this. And then, of course, realizing through the movie that, our Batman from Batman the Animated Series was, in this show. And I think at that point it clicked that I don't think I realized when this first started coming out that this was a continuation of Batman the Animated Series. Like, I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, I think
So
that's a good point because I don't think I did either.
right. Yeah. So when I found out, that it was kind of a little more exciting than just knowing we have a younger Batman. Because
Yeah.
when I first heard of this, I really felt like this was trying to capture the momentum of Spider-Man Unlimited, I think,
Mhm.
which was coming out at the time. And it very much is that. But having said that, I think when you go through and watch this show, it does stand on its own 2 feet. It has a lot that's really good about the show itself. Now, do I think it's as good as Batman the Animated Series? No, I don't. But I do get a lot of enjoyment out of watching the show here and there, and especially Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. That's a fabulous animated movie. Um, but as I said earlier, Joe and I did watch the pilot, the 2 episode pilot. So that's what we're going to talk about for a little while today. And we're going to do this the same way we did Batman the Animated Series. I have a synopsis here. I am going to go through the synopsis really quickly, and then we're going to break down and talk about the 2 episodes. So in 2019, so a couple of years ago now, Bruce Wayne, the original Batman, retires due to failing health when his rescue of a kidnapped woman nearly goes wrong and he must resort to almost using a gun, the ultimate sin in his eyes. 20 years later, in 2039, high school student and former delinquent Terry McGinnis discovers Batman's identity after the aging Bruce Wayne helps him fight off a gang of jokers, street punks enamored by the original clown prince of crime. After Terry's father is murdered, Terry seeks Bruce's help to avenge him. Terry steals the Batsuit to pursue his father's killer, a professional bodyguard named Mr. Fix, whose employer, Derek Powers, the current CEO of Wayne Powers, is secretly using the company's resources to develop a biological weapon. Bruce Wayne, angered upon discovering the theft, deactivates the suit, but when seeing the now helpless Terry being punched out, reactivates it, and after the latter convinces him to allow Terry to continue pursuing Fix by relating his father's murder to Wayne's own parents. In the end, Wayne realizes that crime and corruption are running rampant around Gotham City, and Wayne appears at Terry's house to hire him as a special assistant. So Joe, you watched the 2 part premiere. Tell me, going back and watching this again, because I know it's probably been what since Holy Batcast covered it that you watched these episodes.
Probably. Yeah, I may have seen these once prior to that,
Mhm.
and that's really it.
Well, I'll preface it by saying I think this show had a really, really strong start.
Mhm.
But what did you think of the 2 episode pilot?
Well, I think it does a really great job of establishing that this is, well, I guess it could stand on its own. I mean, yeah, it's Batman the Animated Series because it's Kevin Conroy playing Batman, but it doesn't call back to it directly. It
Mhm.
could be on its own. If you had never seen Batman the Animated Series and you were a younger child and you're watching this for the first time, you don't need any prior knowledge other than, hey, this is Bruce Wayne, he's Batman, he's a little older now. I think this show does a good job of calling back to Batman and his, obviously you got the Joker gang, like calling back to past criminals. And then you got this, it's really a strong, gripping opening. The first scene to me is the best part of this pilot, but I do think it's a strong pilot. It's hard for someone that grew up with Bruce Wayne as Batman to watch something like this and get as invested in it as I did with Bruce Wayne as Batman.
Mm.
But I think the credit to the show is that it can at least make me interested enough because Bruce Wayne plays such a huge part where, but if you don't have that, you still have the interest from the younger kids that don't have, the prior love for Batman the Animated Series. They get invested on the new characters, and that's more geared towards them, which
Mhm.
this show is geared more towards them than us. I think whatever they get from us is a bonus as far as viewership.
Yeah, I agree. And I really think what was so strong about this episode or these two episodes is the reasoning that they came to get Bruce out of the cape and cowl.
Mhm.
That his body was failing him. He wasn't able to go as he once did. And then in a desperate moment, he has to pull a gun on someone, to not only save someone that he's there to protect, but also himself. Because he's in such a bad situation and his body will not do what he needs it to do the job of Batman anymore.
Mhm.
And then he said, I think it's so impactful when you see him hang the suit up in the cave, and he closes the case and he says, "I think never again."
Mhm.
It's such an impact because he can't do it anymore, and he's not going to sink to that level to continue to be Batman. So I think that's really strong. And then the way we go through the episode with finding out about Terry's father's death and then him stealing the bat suit. So, a little bit of a Tim Drake situation where he becomes Batman by sheer will. Like, I'm going to do this. Kind of
Mhm.
like how Drake became Robin. He steals the suit and he goes out and he wants to avenge his father's death, much in the very same way that Bruce has spent his whole life avenging his parents' death. And that's what's the ultimate factor in convincing Bruce that he should be Batman. And so I think that whole storyline, taking everything else out of the episode, just those story beats, makes this a really strong opening.
And that's essentially the first part. I mean, that is the focal point of the episode or of even the two-parter is showing you why we need to care about Terry McGinnis as a character. And
Mhm.
they start off the episode with him defending a random person on the subway, if I remember correctly. Like or you
Yeah,
know,
so they show his altruism from the start.
yeah, they're establishing him as just a good person. And that's how he meets Bruce is they're coming after him and he ends up, right at Wayne Manor. And then you get a cool, action scene of him and Bruce fighting side by side against the Joker gang.
Mm.
So they do a really good job of getting you, and there's not a lot of Batman action in the first part. It's it's the early Bruce Wayne stuff where it's
Mhm.
really tough to see him in pain. I mean, you watch that and you think like, is he having a heart attack? Like that's how they like kind of depict it, but he doesn't get any medical attention from the heart attack. So like it's something they leave it very vague on what he actually is experiencing.
Yeah, but I do think it's a good setup because later that's what leads Terry to realizing he's Batman because he has to take Bruce into Wayne Manor to get his medication. They don't say what it's
Yes.
for, but
Hmm.
clearly, I think they're clearly setting up that he has a heart issue.
Yeah. Cartoon
Um,
logic there with or futuristic cartoon logic where you have a heart attack, just take some medication and yeah, it goes away. That kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, maybe he's got really high blood pressure.
Hey.
That can cause a cardiac event.
Yeah.
So, um, so yeah, I love the setup. I love kind of the passing of the torch aspect of the two-part pilot. Um, I'll be honest, I think these two episodes are two of the strongest episodes of the entire series.
Hmm.
And I do think the first season is the strongest season. And they've kind of said that a lot, the creators of the show. Bruce Timm has been very vocal that he does not think seasons 2 and 3 are as strong as season 1. And I think that's because they had to tailor it. They had to tailor seasons 2 and 3 to a little bit of a younger audience.
Hmm.
And I don't think clearly Bruce Timm is not that guy. Like
Hmm.
he does make children's television, but he very much so in the style of Batman the Animated Series, he likes an edge. He likes it where
Yeah.
people of all ages can enjoy it. So
Hmm.
yeah, he's been very vocal. He's not crazy about the season 2 and 3. Um, Having said that, one thing that really surprised me looking back on these episodes is I didn't realize that they set up Blight, Derek Powers' alter
Hmm.
ego in the very first episode. I had
Yeah.
forgotten that. I don't know if you remembered that or not.
That I did remember because that's pretty big in this episode, and yeah, I do remember that. And I remember Powers playing a huge part in the episode as well. It's the other stuff that's a little foggy for me as far as how like the controversy with the chemical warfare, whatever you want to call it, the chemical agent that he's introducing, and that's what ends up turning him into Blight. The other guy that gets, I mean, they do essentially kill that one man that they kind of just like
Oh
let
yeah.
go. They kill an animal off screen, which was horrific.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what kind of animal it was now, but it was like they literally like they kill him and then they just pan away as the animal is dosed with this medicine, like or the warfare. So it's definitely a little rougher around the edges. One of those things that
Yeah.
because it's not shown, the kids can you could say, oh, he's fine. But
Yeah. Right. Well, and another thing that I really like about the premiere here is you're not only setting up Terry as the new Batman, you're also setting up the ultimate villain of the series in Derek Powers. And not only there's a conflict between him and Terry because we know that um, Powers has set up the death of Terry's father, but
mhm,
there's also this conflict between Bruce Wayne and Derek Powers because
yeah.
Powers has ultimately taken over Wayne Enterprises, and Bruce is not pleased over what he's doing with the
Mhm.
company. Yeah, especially once he finds out he's making basically poison. So, yeah, I think it's a really, again, it's a really strong, excuse
Hmm.
me, way to start the series. And I think had I watched this from the beginning, I think these two episodes probably would have gotten me on board to watch concurrently. So I think it's at the age I was at the time, kind of like you said, and
Yeah.
the stink of Batman and Robin had me turned off of it for a little while. So, but yeah, I will admit, Batman Begins eventually really got me back into Batman, but Batman Beyond Return of the Joker was really a selling point as well for getting me back invested in Batman because those two pieces are so strong that yeah, goes a long way to get you back into the fold.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to bring up is I don't remember when I actually watched Return of the Joker for the first time. It was not when it came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember seeing it when it came out on DVD in a store somewhere, like at a Target or something. And I remember going like, "Huh, I wonder what that is." Like they brought the Joker back for Batman Beyond. Like I'm curious what that would be. I'm like, and I never really looked into it too much till way later because it came out in
Hmm.
2000.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw it until probably 2004, 2005.
That's interesting. So I definitely know I saw it when it came out because it was I think I've told you this before because we covered Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. If I remember correctly, didn't we?
I don't think we did.
Or maybe we talked about it when we ranked the animated movies.
Yes, maybe.
So I remember specifically, we were on kind of because my aunt and uncle lived several hours away from us growing up. They lived in the mountains of North Carolina, so we were on kind of
Hmm.
a family trip to go visit them, and it was premiering while we were there. I want to say Cartoon Network was where it
Hmm.
first aired,
I don't
and yeah, so I was flipping through the channels at my uncle's house and there was the big promo for it, movie premiere, big to do tonight. So I decided to watch it then and I remember really liking it that night. So I did see it the first night and then like I said it was a couple of years later when I realized that Will Friedle was Batman that I really dived into the series.
even.
Because I think at that point it was coming on like Toonami or something like that is when I started watching the series. So several years after it had aired. Um, but Joe, did you have any other thoughts about the two episodes pilot or are we good?
No, just that I think yeah, I think I agree with you that if I did watch this when it first aired, or if I had, I mean, I'll be honest, like, I didn't watch it when it first aired, but when I watched Return of the Joker, I went to check this out for the first time. And it did kind of get me interested in the show. The show is
Hmm.
not, you know, a show that I watch a lot. It's not like if I'm going to choose a Batman show to watch, I don't turn this on very often. There are a few episodes here and there that I'm into, and we'll get into that more as far as the show as a whole. Um, but I do think it does its job really well of getting you hooked to kind of tune into the next week. And I think if I was
Yeah.
at the right age, I think this would have really interested me. I'll admit, I didn't even watch Justice League and Justice League Unlimited when they aired. So it wasn't that I was against this show. It was that I really just wasn't watching a lot of DC animated stuff at this era anyway,
Yeah.
just because of my age.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Again, yeah, I think the first two episodes really give you a strong hook to get into the series. And I do think that this show and the movie created a following for this character that's still going today. I mean, clearly, because they brought him back for an episode of Justice League for what was the episode
Epilogue,
was Epilogue.
epilogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they brought him back for that, which has a controversial twist as well, which we'll talk
Mhm.
about in a little bit. And then, ever since then, he's had his own several comic series. I think he's got one that's ongoing right now. He's been included in video games. He's an alternate skin in the Batman Arkham games.
He's been a
Um,
member of like a futuristic Justice League in the
he
comics.
has,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then he also, as recently as last year, he had another comic series with Batman Beyond the White Knight.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so Gordon Murphy, who clearly loves the animated Batman universe, brought Terry into his comic world as well, and I thought that was really well done. So yeah, he's a character who I don't think he'll ever quite be as popular or as sought after as Bruce Wayne Batman,
Hmm.
but he does have a following. And this show, I would even say, has a little bit of a cult following. So, yeah, I think it did enough. And this is one thing that whole universe had a habit of doing, like with Harley Quinn and things like that. It did enough where it created a character that is now in Batman canon and is a firm part of Batman mythos.
And it becomes like a choose your own ending as far as the where Batman's timeline goes when he
Hmm.
retires. I think that's good because like you have your Dark Knight Returns fans that are gonna take that as what they believe to be the later years Batman.
Hmm.
This established in the animated series, obviously, but you could kind of have it either way. And I think the show did a really good job of even the people that don't particularly love the show, I don't know anyone that resents the show or hates the show. So it's not
Hmm.
like they hate when Terry shows up in other things. And I
No,
think that says a lot about the show, where it does have at least a tolerance from people, which let's be honest, as sad as this is going to sound, in the comic book world, tolerance is pretty rare when it comes to stuff like this. So anytime there's not a huge um uproar when something like this happens. I mean, who knows what would have happened if this just came out this year. But at least now people kind of have embraced Harry even if they don't love him. It's still okay to have him around and be a part of the universe.
Well, and I look at it as you can tell when a character really works, like one of these characters that takes over a mantle, and you can tell when they don't. For instance, I don't think Luke Fox works as Batman. People haven't embraced that, much in the same way that like Ben Riley didn't click with people as Spider-Man. But you've got Miles Morales and you've got Terry McGinnis, and those are accepted alternate versions of these beloved characters. And I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. Okay. And then one more thing I did want to bring up about the show itself. I mean, we were talking about the comic series and the different iterations and things like that. I mean, this alongside Batman the Animated Series, we also got a Blu-ray collection that was released. Oh gosh, what was it? 2019? Is that when it was?
I don't remember, but I have it as well. Now, do you have the one that came with the little Funko?
Yeah, he's right there.
Oh, I see him. Okay. I
Yeah,
must say too, I love the fact that you change your background just for me when we're recording.
just for you because nobody else sees this.
Yeah, I
Like,
love that you put different things like you have your Batman Beyond collection up there now. I don't change anything on my background. My background's just kind of the wall. You're stuck with my ceiling almost is the way my thing goes. But I do
yeah,
love that. Yeah, mine yeah, I do own that. It was cool because it came with the full size Funko where the animated series one came with the mini Funkos.
the Pocket Funkos. Yeah,
Is that what they're called? Okay, I don't
yeah,
know.
they're
Yeah.
tiny little things. Um, but yeah, and it's a beautifully mastered series, much
Mhm.
like Batman the Animated Series. The interesting part that I wanted to bring up with you, so this series was 52 episodes.
Mhm.
So all but 11 episodes were remastered. And I know you're the audio visual guy. So I don't know if you had ever heard that before, but there's 11 episodes of this series that did not get remastered because of something wonky or wrong with the original master file.
But they're on the set still.
They're on the sets,
They're
but
just
they're
not
not
remastered.
remastered. Yeah.
It's funny because I don't even think I noticed it while I was watching through the series. So it's not like they're not in standard def. They didn't go back to the original prints to really fully remaster them.
I guess, yeah. I
I
just
will
thought it
say,
was
I will say I watched them on HBO Max.
mm,
I didn't watch the Blu-rays themselves. So I don't know if, on HBO Max they just brighten them up to make it look matching of the other ones. Um,
yeah,
I'm not
maybe. I
sure.
don't
That's
know.
interesting. Especially since I remember hearing that, but I never looked too much into it. But it's very interesting considering this show is newer than Batman the Animated Series, and I do not remember that being the case for the animated series.
No, they
Where they,
upscaled. Yeah, they all of those
yeah.
were remastered. Um, and Batman Beyond Return of the Joker got a remaster as well. So it's just that there's 11 random episodes, and I don't even know which ones they are. So it would be
Mhm.
interesting to find that out and kind of
Yeah.
compare. But yeah, so neat fun fact about the Batman Beyond Blu-ray set is
Hmm.
there's 11 episodes floating out there that are not remastered. But Joe, you had mentioned some other episodes, and I'm glad you did this because I really didn't even think about this. There were some that stuck out to you. Is that what you were telling me?
Well, I think for us, the ones that stick out are the ones that grab our attention by bringing back a classic villain.
Mm,
You have the Mr. Freeze episode, which I think is okay. I think the Ra's al Ghul episode is excellent. I think it's with Talia actually more than Ra's, if I remember correctly.
yes.
Um, I have a
Uh,
soft spot for the Ace episode because I love Ace the Bad Hound.
Frank
There's
Welker was the voice of Ace, by the way.
oh really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, because of course
Um
he was.
um, but what else? Are those
So
it? I know I'm
one
missing
that sticks
one.
out to me is the Mr. Freeze episode.
Mhm.
Because I think they did a great job with that. Mr. Freeze was creepy in the episode, and it carries over from the great Mr. Freeze episodes that we had in Batman the Animated Series. But what I'm hearing from you, and what I definitely agree with, is when they kind of went back to Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
Of course, for us, that was a standout. So yeah, and I agree. I think one of the biggest issues with this show, um, is that they never really made the Batman Beyond villains have the same impact that the traditional Batman villains did.
Hmm.
Like you never could get a grip on these new villains. I think Blight is the standout, and he's carried over into some other things. But maybe Ink is the
Yeah.
next highest. I don't know. Do you
Well,
have any favorite Batman Beyond villains?
honestly, I think Ink is the only one that I would even remember besides Blight. I think Holy Batcast discussed this a lot when they were doing their recap of the series.
Hmm.
When you look back at the animated series, almost every villain was established already when you went into an episode. So you
Mm.
didn't have to take time to show the character's origin and all that because we all knew who those characters were. And when you think about the ones that did get origins, they were two-parters. Clayface got a two-parter. Two-Face got a two-parter.
Yes.
Um, in this show, you had to introduce a new character, turn him into a villain, and then wrap up the episode all in 21 minutes. Not to mention the fact that you also had Bruce Wayne and Terry McGinnis with some type of conflict going on. Like there was a lot to put into an episode in this series to grab everybody. And it's
Hmm.
not an easy task. And I think the villains were the ones that probably got shortchanged, which I don't think there's anything you could do to avoid that because you have to put the focus on Terry and Bruce and everything else going on. Not to mention we forgot to mention that Barbara plays a big part in the show,
She does.
which is cool. Barbara being the
She's a
commissioner
police
now.
commissioner. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot this show had to accomplish, and I think for what it did, trying to establish new villains in this universe is probably the hardest thing because Batman has the best rogues gallery in comics in our I'll say in our opinion. I think I'm not speaking out of turn saying that. Um, it's it's tough to come up with new ones for a Batman show. I mean, think about how hard it is for comic writers now to come up with new villains in regular Batman comics, trying to come up with futuristic Batman villains that don't have ties to anything established. I mean, or you could kind of tie them in. It's got to be a really daunting task, especially in a 21-minute episode.
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at the recent run on Batman. Was it James Tinian not long ago? It felt like he was creating a Batman villain every new issue,
And it
and
never caught on. No.
none of them stuck.
Mhm.
Um, and they
And it
tried their
actually it
hardest.
wore people out a lot of reading the comic because
Yeah.
they got, it's sad because we want as comic fans, we are our own worst enemies. We want original stories, but we want familiar stories.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to put up with when you're a writer.
Yeah,
Is yeah,
we want you to be creative and bold and take new steps, but we're very uncomfortable with change.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Star Wars
And
fans
honestly,
cannot relate.
well, we're not going to open that can of
No.
worms. Um, but yeah, I mean, and I know this is going to sound exactly like the Scott Snyder fanboy that I am, but I think the last big villain segment that stuck with Batman fans was the Court of Owls that was
Oh,
newly introduced.
I don't think that's yeah, I mean, and think about this. He did the Court of Owls. I'll even say he got greedy and tried to establish another one in the Bloom, and it did
And it
not
didn't
work.
work. No,
It's hard. And
and
Bloom
I've
was a
told you
cool villain,
I
but
like that
it's
story, but it didn't.
yes.
A lot of people did not like that.
And I
So
also wonder if Bloom would have worked better if it was Bruce Wayne, because maybe more people would have taken to it. But I'm sorry, not if Bloom was Bruce Wayne. I spoke that too quickly.
if
If Bloom
Batman
was,
was,
yeah, if Bruce Wayne was currently Batman at the time of introducing Bloom, maybe we would have gotten more invested, but it's hard to say. And I don't hate that character, but also he's introducing these characters in long form. He's not introducing them in one issue. And that is really hard. And I think when we think about in a comic, if you're introducing a villain in a one issue story, you're probably not even expecting that villain to return. You're just telling a really quick one-off story.
Yeah.
If you want that villain to return, you're going to start with a sweeping story to get people invested in a long form.
Yeah, and that's what makes me very curious to read like the original run of the Batman Beyond comics because I want to see how some of these villains might have translated into that form.
Yeah,
Maybe I'd have a better grip on Shriek or Ink or some
better
of these
fleshed
other
out
characters.
stories.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm very curious about that. But again, going back to what we were saying, the standouts for us because of all these reasons were the original villains. Like one moment that really sticks out to me is the episode where they visited Bane and it showed you, because he's in a wheelchair, he's in a nursing home, and it
Yes,
shows
okay.
you kind of the effects of what Venom all those years had on him.
hmm
And that had more impact than most of the new villains that they were creating. Because it's
Yeah.
like, holy crap, look what's happened to this character we've known for so long.
But it's also us being the nostalgia junkies as well because we just like we watch this show because we care about Batman and we're kind of along for the ride. It's not our Batman, but we'll do whatever you want. Like we'll check it out here and there. But then it's like, oh wait, Bane, like I remember him. Like he's my villain.
Yeah.
And you just have that different like you just sit up a little in your seat like, oh Bane, like I'm or we're getting a Mr. Freeze episode like cool. It's kind of like back in the day with Batman 66 when they would introduce like, hey, on next week's episode, and you waited to hear who it was, and then it would
Yeah.
say like, Lily the Lilac, and you were like, who the heck is that?
Well, it
I
just
want
goes
to,
to show you nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
yeah, without a doubt.
So, and then the biggest thing that I did want to ask you about, because I know this is a sticking point with a lot of people, especially traditionalists with Batman. What do you think of the Beyond suit?
Honestly, I think I've said this before. There's something about black and red that just always looks so cool to me. I love the color scheme of black and red.
Mhm.
As far as, I mean, the suit itself, it's a futuristic Batman suit. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I think it works. And I think because it's been around for so long and I don't remember seeing it when it was first revealed to care one way or the other, I've just kind of, yes, Batman Beyond suit. I don't have a jarring first look at it. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
just what I remember as the Batman Beyond suit. And the wings are the only thing that's a little odd, but also I think a cape would be weird if he was flying around with the cape. I think it's a good happy medium. He's got the bat ears, he's got, a belt, he's got the bat logo on the crest. I think it's more jarring for me to see Bruce in the suit in the first episode than it is for me to see Terry in it.
I tell you, one thing I noted, I really thought about when we were watching it this time, though, I love the size differential they make.
Mhm.
Like, because you can clearly see when Bruce is in the suit, he's a lot bigger than Terry.
Oh yeah.
And I mean Terry's muscular and all that. I mean he's a fit guy in the show and Deb, but you can see a clear difference between Bruce Wayne in that suit and Terry in that suit, which kind of brings up a logistical question of how it doesn't look like, it's sagging on Terry when he's
Oh,
wearing it, but
that's the Back to the
that's
Future effect where they push the button and it form fits. That's how I always
yeah,
took it.
yeah, gotcha.
Now, so is there a time jump from when he hangs up the suit to when we're introduced to Terry?
Yeah, yeah. So
How many years is it?
the opening of the show is 2019. So and then when we meet Terry, it's 2039. So it's 20 years have
Oh, it's
passed.
20 years. Okay, so it's a long
Yeah.
time. I don't remember. I couldn't remember that. So, and Bruce, the only thing that bothers me about Bruce being in the suit is there is no flight to Bruce's suit, correct?
In the opening,
Yeah, does he fly in that
I
suit?
think he does. I think he
Oh,
does at
okay.
one
Because
point.
it's weird to me to see Bruce without a cape. That
Yeah.
is a little strange to me. But other than that, I think for Batman Beyond, I think the suit is fine. For Terry, I don't have an issue with the suit.
I do like that even in this futuristic world that we're in, Terry goes out of his way to point out, even though they never changed the suit in the show, when he's looking at the suit in the case, he goes out of his way to say it's obsolete but still cutting edge. Like even at this point, it's an old suit.
Yeah.
But they never change it. It's the one he
Mhm.
wears throughout the entire series. But yeah, I've always liked the design. I like you. I like the red and black. I do really like the wings because I think it gives another pop of red. Because otherwise, this is a very, very black suit.
Mhm.
My only quabble with this suit is I've never been crazy about the full face mask,
Yeah,
like that covers the mouth.
it's one of those things that I don't know how it works. And it's
Right.
always been the
Yeah.
same thing with the Cassandra Cain Batgirl has that. And I don't understand if it's like, is it just like a really tight thing on their face so you could see their face move while it's on? I'm not understanding of the logistics of it, I think is the hard part for me.
Well, Cassandra's mouth is completely covered, right?
Hmm.
Where his, you see his like Terry, you see his teeth, and like when he's talking, you see his mouth open. So
Oh,
it's
yeah. Cartoon, that's cartoon logic then.
yeah. So and you know, there's always been that beating the drum from a small yet vocal crowd that they want Batman Beyond in live action, and this is the biggest hang up to me is I have no idea how you do this
Oh,
in
I think
live
you just cover the
action.
face completely like a Spider-Man costume. That's what I would do. I think
Yeah,
that's the only way to make it work.
yeah. So, but otherwise, I've always had a soft spot for this suit. I mean, not my traditional pick, of course. I like the classic bat suit, but yeah, I think this has become almost kind of iconic on its own. This design because you see it and you instantly know what it is and you know
Yes.
who it is.
Hmm.
You know this is not Bruce Wayne when you see this suit. So, but yeah, 25 years. Which I was telling Ryan Lauer the other day. The worst part about this show being 25 years old is it makes me feel like extremely old.
Well,
So,
think about we were just talking about how we were too old for this show when it started, and that's why we weren't into it. And
and
now
now it's
we're
20.
celebrating 25 years of it. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So Joe, kind of to wrap it up on Batman Beyond, any last thoughts? Anything else you wanted to bring up that we didn't get to?
To me, the biggest takeaway from Batman Beyond will always be Ace the Bat Hound. As stupid as that is, I love Ace. Um, we always had Ace as a character, but this show established Ace as Batman's dog for the general audience to me. And because I've always had a soft spot for dogs, and I mean my dog is named Ace. I will always have a soft spot for the show for that, as trivial as that may be. But I just think the show it did what it was supposed to do at the time. Like you said, it piggybacked off Spider-Man without a doubt. It tried to get that age group, and I think it did. It lasted 3 seasons.
Hmm.
Not easy to do. Um, and it was a fun show that carried on the animated series' legacy. And I think
Yep.
that I think legacy is an important word here because it did harken back to a lot of stuff. And I think the fact that we got Return of the Joker from this, which when you think about Return of the Joker, most people have that as one of their top animated films or Batman films in general. And those are people that didn't even watch Batman Beyond when it first aired. And I'm one of those people. So this show brought a lot of good to Batman, a lot of just additional context for Batman as a character, showing that the legacy can be passed on eventually if need be. There's a lot of good stuff in this show, even if it's not one that I go back to a lot, because it's not my Batman, as cliche as that is,
Hmm.
but I do still enjoy it. And I'm glad that it has a place for so many people.
Yeah, completely agree. Not my first pick when I want to watch something Batman, but it's definitely left an indelible mark on the mythos and the history of Batman. And again, as you said, I mean, Return of the Joker is a fantastic film. So, and that is one I will watch that much more often than I will revisit the series. And that gives you your taste of Batman Beyond that you want, and it also gives you that nostalgia of Batman the Animated
Mhm.
Series. So it's a perfect pairing. But otherwise, yeah, this is for what it is. This is a great show. And it was really fun to revisit it with Batcast when they did their rewatch, and it was really fun to revisit the pilot here. And yeah, it's one that I'll go back to here and there. But I'm so glad that it exists. I'm so glad that it's part of the mythos. And again, I'm glad that he pops back up here and there because I really enjoyed reading Beyond the White Knight. So I look forward to more sprinkles of Terry McGinnis here and there. But that's where we're going to tie up Batman Beyond. We're not quite ready to leave you guys yet, though, because Joe doesn't even know this yet. But we have 4 emails, Joe.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So 2 of them are from Lee Anchoret. So I will go ahead and give it a little bit of a rub there because one was a follow up, but it is technically 4 emails. So let's start here with Lee's email. Lee says, "Hello, gentlemen. Happy New Year to you both. Hope you're well and had a brilliant festive period. Hopefully, I've sent this email in time to catch your DCEU episode. If not, it's Joe's fault. As writing this email on my phone, I've attached screenshots of my full ranked letterbox list, minus Aquaman 2, I'm afraid, as I haven't had a chance to see it yet. To save a bit of time, even though I know you love it when I send in an essay, my top 3 favorite films: BVS, Man of Steel, The Flash. My bottom 3 favorite films: JL 17, Suicide Squad 16, and Shazam Fury of the Gods. I have loved every moment of this DC journey and genuinely didn't hate any part of what we saw on screen. I can even find a time and place to enjoy JL 17 when I'm in the mood. I will always be grateful for being given my favorite versions of on screen Batman and Superman, Affleck and Cavill, and so in love with the fact that we got Keaton back for one last hurrah. My favorite moments include the Martha rescue, of course, Bruce serving Alfred coffee, the Trinity's first scene, and Superman's heart-wrenching decision to kill Zod to save Earth. Forgive me for not picking anything quirky. I'm doing this from memory, and those moments live rent-free in my head. Also, do Margot Robbie and Gal Gadot, but that's for different reasons. My biggest surprise was Blue Beetle, which I thought was excellent. Like everyone else, I only wish we could have had this epic journey without the behind the scenes drama. This has been awful for everyone involved. I will miss this part of the cinematic universe dearly, but at least I have my 4Ks to keep me company forever. Thanks for everything you do. As always, all the best, Lee." And Lee did attach his letterboxed rankings of the DCEU, but then he did send us a little follow up. So let me pull that one up. He said, "Oh, follow up. My new favorite scene remembered. Bruce running towards all the chaos and destruction at the start of BVS, whilst
yeah.
everyone else runs away from it. Man, I love BVS so much." Well, Lee, thank you so much for your essay that you sent in and your follow up there. So, Joe, some nice thoughts from Lee about his memories of the DCEU. A little bit surprising that Fury of the Gods is dead last on his list.
Well, so
Um,
I was actually going to ask you that because I wanted to, he doesn't specify, but I think he's flipping them because he said I can even find some enjoyment about JL 2017. Is he giving you the bottom 3 starting with his bottom as JL 2017? Or did he actually put the ranking in?
So in the email, he had 13, 14, 15, with Fury of the
Oh,
Gods being 15.
well, he's just
Um, but
whacked out.
but let let me look at his letterboxed ranking here. Yeah, Fury of the Gods dead last.
Wow. You know what, Lee? I can't. I can't with him sometimes, man. But that's all right. No, that's fine. I actually am impressed that he has the Flash at number 3 because we've actually been talking about the last few days about how we really love that film, and it's so
Mhm.
hard to distance ourselves right now from the drama and just the BS uh narrative that has been like fabricated about that movie being so terrible lately. When it started out that movie was excellent, and everyone just forgets how the reviews were good when that movie came out, and even the fan reactions were good when that movie came out, and now all of a sudden it's everyone's worst movie. So I'm happy that Lee was able to look past all that crap because I've had trouble with that. Um, this Lee hit it, right out of the park when he said we still have our 4Ks and nothing will take that away. This universe has been nothing but drama from start to finish, but now that it's all said and done, we have these movies and they'll stay with us forever. And I still just think this was like the what is it, the little engine that could? Like this
Yeah.
this this universe died every 10 minutes, it seems, right? Like every film was this the film that's gonna save the DCU, and then the movie comes out and it bombs. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well that film didn't save it, but it didn't kill it either somehow. And we ended up with still 15. Is that it? 15 movies?
It's 16 because he
16
didn't
if you
have Aquaman.
okay, if you include both cuts of Justice League, then it's 16.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. That's I'll
And
take it.
Peacemaker.
Yeah. And
And I
uh
do agree with you, Lee. Blue Beetle is excellent.
yeah, agree too. Definitely a pleasant surprise this year or last year. Um so yeah, thank you, Lee, for the emails, even though I think you're completely insane for having Shazam Fury of the Gods dead last. I don't know what the hell you're talking about there, but that's all right. Whatever.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lee. I really enjoyed going through your memories there of the DCEU. A lot of those are right up there at the top for me as well. So thanks again, buddy. We always appreciate when you write in. Our next email is from Stuart from Guernsey, and he does say, "Hey, Eric and Joe, my thoughts on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I did enjoy it a lot more than I thought I was going to. The forced humor didn't bother me so much, but it is the sort of thing that will bother me more over time. By the time I've seen the movie 3 to 4 times, that's when I will know for certain how much the film works for me overall. If you loved the first Aquaman, I can't see how the action and the visual effects won't work for you in this, but the jokes and puns that they include to get general audience invested or a laugh out of them can also be a hindrance if they're too on the nose, which I found they were in this, which won't work again once you've had your first laugh out of them. Patrick Wilson was brilliant. You can tell he's trying to do his best with what was given to him. Overall, I enjoyed it and look forward to seeing it again. I'm currently watching all the DCEU movies in chronological order, which will include Peacemaker. I'll also be figuring out my ranking as I go along. I've just got to Wonder Woman 84, so I won't be watching Aquaman 2 again until I'm caught up. Anyway, hope you guys are doing well. Keep up the good work, Stuart. Well, thank you, Stuart. And it sounds like you and I were pretty close with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Yeah, and I agree with you. If you like the first one, so far as visual effects and action, I think it's right along the line there. And again, it was the humor that didn't work for me. And it sounds like you got a little more enjoyment out of the humor, but you don't know how it'll go in the future. So I got that. And let us know when you finish that rewatch where yours ranks. But Joe, what'd you think of Stuart's email?
Thank you for the email, Stuart. And yeah, I agree with him, and I've had that experience in the past too with the humor where maybe on first viewing you can kind of like look past it a little bit, or maybe some of the humor might work a little bit, but it's on repeat viewings. And I've had this experience a lot with a lot of the recent Marvel films where the humor is fine the first time you watch it, but when you go to a rewatch and you're like, oh, like it's just over and over, and you kind of feel like it's beaten to death. I do worry that that's going to have the effect on me with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, but I hope it's not enough to take me out of the stuff that I did really enjoy about the movie. So I understand where he's coming from with that, and I do hope that he can look past the little faults of the movie and enjoy the stuff that he did enjoy the first time, because I think the rewatches for these films are important. That's we do watch these films a lot. We like to be entertained. We like to have that comfort of watching these movies over and over again. So if you when you go to rewatch something that you kind of liked or even really enjoyed the first time, and it doesn't have that effect the second time, it's really disheartening, and that's when you really know how you feel about the movie. um I will say, it's when we're recording this, only in a few more days, it will be available to purchase digitally. I want to say, did I say it was Tuesday or is it the 30th?
I can't remember.
God, now I can't remember. I thought it was the 30th, so I'm wrong. I don't think it's the 23rd. I think it's the 30th, excuse me, for the digital dropping. So either way, it's in January, and we'll get to experience it at home sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, a lot can change on a rewatch, especially if you've only seen it once in the theater. So I'm curious to see it again and see how it works for me. And it is, like you said, I mean, I just had that experience recently with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania because I told you coming out of the theater, I know I was kind of alone on that, but I enjoyed that coming out of the theater. And then when I rewatched it, it did not work at all. So
Mhm.
that it is disheartening. So hopefully it's the flip for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. We'll see. But thank you so much for that email, Stuart. And then moving on to our final email here. This is from Lucas Watkins. And Lucas says, "Hey, TFR. Hope the new year is treating you well. I'm hoping we start to hear some news on the Batman Caped Crusader animated series. Like most Bat Bros, I grew up loving the Batman animated series co-created by Bruce Timm. Considering the legend is back at the helm with Caped Crusader, which looks to be a noir style follow up to BTAS, this is probably the highest level of anticipation I've ever had for any Batman project. The original Batman animated series was well recognized for giving lesser members of Batman's Rogues Gallery incredible redesigns, as well as establishing their definitive origin stories, notably Mr. Freeze and Two-Face. They also created original characters for the show that have become iconic: Harley Quinn, the Gray Ghost. What villains in Batman's Rogues Gallery would you most like to see get a new makeover and possibly a new origin story in the upcoming Caped Crusaders series? Any lesser known villains that you'd like to see brought to the forefront? I would absolutely love to hear you discuss this on the show. Also, do you think they will create new iconic characters for the Caped Crusader? Hope to hear your thoughts. Best regards, Lucas." Lucas gave us some homework here, Joe. Uh, awesome email though, Lucas. I really appreciate you writing in. I think this is the first time we've had Lucas write in, so thanks, man. We really appreciate that. And then, yeah, so Cape Crusader, it's a good episode to talk about this on since we're kind of talking the Bruce Timm universe anyway with Batman Beyond. So, Joe, what do you think? Any villains you'd like to see get a new makeover for the show? And do you think any of them will get like a definitive origin story the way they did in the animated series?
As far as a makeover goes, the first one that popped into my head for some reason was Bane.
Mm.
Not necessarily that I want a makeover. Just think he's a character that can be taken seriously and you can adjust his costume accordingly to whatever world you're trying to put him into. And as long as you don't have him like the character he was in Batman and Robin, he could be done really well and really interesting. And I think I want to see him done. Um, I think we've talked about it before, kind of how we wished he was in Tom King's run, because I think Bane is done really well in that run, but there were other things we didn't like about that run, but I think Bane was established pretty well. I want to see that, that master manipulator, the master the guy that's really gonna take over everything and really try to manipulate the situation and overpower Batman mentally and physically. That's what I want to see.
Mm.
I know it's been done in other mediums before. I still love The Dark Knight Rises. I think he's done really well there, but I can see something to that effect done in this show. The other one I thought of was Poison Ivy. I would love to see something really cool with Poison Ivy. I think she's overdue for
Oh, that's a
something
good one.
really modern and really, handle her really strong. I know she's great in Harley Quinn the animated series, but it's a different show. It's different, take on the character, and I think she's really faithful in that show. I want to see like a really foreboding Poison Ivy as a villain. I think that'd be really cool.
That's a really good one. Um, yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on Poison Ivy because I didn't even think about that before you said it.
Mhm.
But I think she is due for kind of a freshening up. I mean, not something that drastically changes her, like kind of like they did with some of the characters in the Batman, the animated series.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, just a fresh reimagining on the way that she looks, I think would be great. And then so far as origin, like someone who could get a definitive origin out of this animated series, someone who I think I enjoy when I see them, but could really work with a little bit of retooling is the ventriloquist. I think you could
That was
take
the
that
first one I
character.
thought of when you said that.
Yeah, you could take the ventriloquist and give him like a really twisted backstory over why he has this kind of disassociative,
Hmm.
disorder and why he uses the puppet as his confidence kind of. I think you could do a lot of things with that, and I think that creative team could definitely give a spin on the ventriloquist. That would be cool.
Especially for animation. I think that's the
Yeah.
place to do that with the ventriloquist and
Hmm.
Scarface. Yeah, I didn't even think about an origin. Honestly, does Poison Ivy have a definitive origin?
I mean, unfortunately, the first thing that pops to
Batman and
mind
Robin,
is Batman and
right?
Robin. Yeah.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
Floronic Man creating her and Bane at the same time or whatever. Like I don't know. Um, so I don't
She could
know.
be a candidate too.
Yeah. So that would be cool to see her like really get some cool treatment. I think there are so many cool Batman villains. And just I think the question is just great in and of itself of we have heard nothing about this show. I mean, we just got a little bit of tidbits the last couple weeks about
Mhm.
them saying it's going to be more adult oriented, a little edgier.
Yeah.
Um, Again, I'm glad about that, but I don't want to see it like I don't
Uber
want to see.
adult.
Yeah, I don't want to see like the Invincibles. Not the is it the Invincibles? What the hell am I, or Invincible?
Invincible.
I don't want
Yeah.
to see that. I still want I wanted I don't want to sound like the old man here, but I do want something that kids can at least be accessible of,
Hmm.
or it
Yeah.
can be at least accessible for kids. But I think going a little bit further than the TV censors might go on a Channel 11 or like the CW back in the day, or even that was Warner Brothers. I think that's fine, but just don't go too far, in my opinion. Young Justice, I think, is that perfect balance.
Agreed. Yeah. Um, and so far as lesser known villains that we want brought to the forefront, that one's really tough. I'd have to put some thought into that. I don't know about lesser known, but one thing I would really like to see out of this show, and I think you could really do it if you get some longevity with the show, like if it's successful. I don't think I'd want this in the first season, but maybe in a season two or season three. As the fan I am, I would love to see like a season long arc where the Court of Owls are pulling the strings in Gotham.
Hmm.
Like where there's just like you don't know it from episode one, but they start to plant seeds, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and then you learn that this is what's happening, and this is what Batman has to combat. I think in an animated series, the Court of Owls could work really well.
It's funny. I agree with you. It's sad to me that the Court of Owls was so big when it came out, and then
Hmm.
it became like cool to say it's overdone, but it was never done well, other than the original comic, in my opinion. Yeah, we got Court of Owls on Gotham. Like to me, that's not where I want to see Court of Owls done well. I want to see Court of Owls. We got the fun little nod to it in Harley Quinn, which was hysterical, but it's not the
Yeah.
Court of Owls. We did get him a little bit in an animated film, but not enough to really show the scope of what Scott Snyder was originally doing. So I do agree, like in a long form way of kind of teasing them here and there, that would be really fun. Uh,
Well, they're the best part of the Gotham Knights video game. I mean, that game's not great, but the
mhm.
Court of Owls stuff is fun.
But you're all, again, to my point, you're getting them when there's no Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
So that's not the perfect place that we want to see them. The whole point of
No,
so I understand where people say, the Court of Owls is kind of overdone at this point because we're seeing them in so many different mediums, but it's not the ideal places we want to see them, or at least for me, I'd rather see them in a better spot because I
exactly.
think they deserve it. But thank you for the question though, Lucas. That was a really good one.
And the last one he had, really quickly, do you think they will create any new iconic characters for Caped Crusader?
I hope
That
so.
one, yeah, I mean, that's the only thing we can say on that was we hope so. I think they will create new villains and new characters. I think it's going to be up to the writing and the show itself as to what happens with them after that.
Mhm.
It's really hard to say, do I think they'll create any? I think they will attempt it, is
Yeah.
the best I think I can say.
I will say established. So we talk about Beware the Batman a couple episodes or a few months back. I think you have to Do the opposite of what that show did. Don't introduce us to the show with lesser known villains because you're going to lose people, unfortunately. Try
Mhm.
to establish us the easy way. Get us to buy into the nostalgia, get us characters that, and I'm not saying for me personally, I'm saying I think the general audience more, bring them in with the characters we know and love already. And then throw us a new character here and there. And I think maybe more people will be more forgiving of that if it doesn't work. But if you
Yep.
start us off with a new villain first episode and it doesn't work, people might tune out, and that's what you
Hmm.
don't want. You don't want to try to win people back when you introduce the Joker and all that, because that's what happened with Beware the Batman. Is they introduced Two-Face in the second part, but people had already checked out by that point.
Yep. Yeah, I think you really have to start with a heavy hitter, and then you can go into, a creative direction.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. I hope so is my best answer for you, Lucas. But thank you so much for writing in. We really enjoyed that, or I did. That was a really fun email and kind of put us on our toes there.
Well, it was a nice surprise for me because I didn't know we got those emails, so that was cool. Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
so there you go. All right, Joe. Well, that is a great place to kind of put a pin in it for this episode. But thank you so much for joining me again. This was fun, and we had a lot of interaction with the listeners here. So great episode. But why don't you let everybody know where they can find you out there on social media?
You guys can find me on Twitter, or X, Instagram, and Letterboxd as JForn11, and you can find me on Facebook as Joe Fornerato, Fornarotto.
Fantastic. And as for myself, you can find my personal accounts on Instagram, X, and Letterboxd at mecarter89. That's mecarter89. The show can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X and Threads at tfrbatpod. If you're looking for a way to support the show, the best and easiest way to do that is to leave us a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. If you're looking for another way to support the show, and we don't ask that you spend a dime on this show, but if you'd like to, we certainly appreciate it. You can go to redbubble.com and search Shop TFR, all one word, and find our logos created by Justin Kowalski on all kinds of merchandise there. You can also send us emails. That email address is tfrbatpod@gmail.com. Our theme song was composed by the very talented Gaurav Venkateswar, and his music can be found at gvtunes.com. Make sure you go to the description of this podcast and visit Organic Price Books. Save yourself some money and support this show as you do so. That's going to do it, though, for this episode of TFR. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll catch you on the next episode. But make sure you keep that bat signal lit and pointed skyward.
Batman was created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane and is the sole property of Warner Bros. Discovery. The Fire Rises, a Batman podcast, is in no way associated with Warner Bros. Discovery, DC Comics, or DC Studios. The thoughts and opinions of the participants of this show are their own and do not represent the companies that they work for. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.